Today on the show, taxpayer dollars funding poetry, and one of the left says, hey, maybe we could be nicer, and gets crucified by her own side.
Welcome to the future, where the glass is half full and you'll need new glasses, where you'll be jumping from conclusions.
The past is a null, and a new future is born.
Never before in history has so much meant so little to so many. AD on the radio.
You know, it's a tough thing for me to say. I'm conflicted saying this, but I feel the way I feel, so I'm going to say it. And I know I'm going to catch some heat for it, and if you disagree with me, well, I welcome that. And I'd be curious to get a different perspective. At ADSXE is where you can find me on Twitter and Instagram if you want to disagree with me on what I'm about to say, or anything that I've ever said. But I just don't get it. I support the arts. I really do, especially for kids, especially in schools. Look, I'm a prime example of a child that benefited by having exposure to music. When I was a child growing up, I had an undiagnosed learning disorder. I was dyslexic. I also had ADD. At the time, ADD was known as shut the hell up and do your homework. The dyslexia thing, though, that was definitely a hindrance. And, well, like I said, it was undiagnosed. And through this combination of attention deficit disorder and dyslexia that went undiagnosed, I was told to sit in the back, that I was one of the slow kids, that I had to show up for special tutoring and extra help, and that not much was expected of me. And I probably wouldn't amount to much. I was essentially told when I was a kid that I was an idiot, that I was a dummy, and that my future was not a bright or sparkling thing. Years later, after having sort of dealt with this from the time I was in, I don't know, first, second, third grade, when real studying started becoming necessary, or I think I really started running into these problems was the third grade, because if memory serves correctly, third grade, that's when you start having to learn your multiplication tables. And I get numbers, letters too, but numbers especially twisted around when I'm writing them down, when I'm reading them, and, well, trying to learn your multiplication tables, your, 11 times tables, or, well, the 11s were pretty easy. I mean, I rocked the 11s. Trying to learn your 7 times table, or whatever it was, wasn't any fun when you were dyslexic. And I really struggled with it. And like I said, I was told not much would be expected of me. I was told, like I said, that I did not have a bright, sparkly, interesting, or success-filled future ahead of me. And I would have believed that, but I came to the conclusion that I couldn't have been a complete idiot, because I did pretty well in the art room, in art class, and with music. I played drums, I picked it up. I learned how to play guitar. I taught myself chords and chord structure. And I remember thinking to myself, if I can figure this out, I can't be completely stupid. And it was interesting, looking back on it, how music education and exposure to music and the ability to have an instrument lying around the house that I could learn how to play made such a massive difference in terms of me going, if I can figure this out, I can figure other parts of the world out. And there is, I don't know how familiar you are with music, but there is math involved in chord structures. And I was piecing this stuff together by ear and then reverse engineering it, kind of taking apart music to see how it worked. And I remember being good at that. And I remember going, okay, if I can do this, I'm not a complete freaking idiot. And then years and years later, I remember going to the library and diagnosing myself with dyslexia and with attention deficit disorder. And years later, these things were confirmed by medical professionals, but I was like, this seems like the stuff I have problems with. And I figured out a workaround for my brain, especially when it came to the ADD. And I went from being told I was this kind of a hopeless case, dunderhead kid, to someone who was on the headmaster's list making straight A's for most of high school. Got myself a National Merit Scholarship, which then I did not use, much to the disappointment of my parents, because I bailed on college to be in a band. So the music thing was a double-edged sword in some ways. But Music gave me, as it gives many children, not only a sense of self-worth when nothing else is really falling into place, but it also gave me a sense of potential. It gave me a sense of being able to cope with and handle the world. And there are so many studies that would indicate kids that have a musical education and access to a musical instrument and all of the above will do significantly better in other areas scholastically if they have a musical education. That is not without debate. But I'm a big proponent of this. I'm a big supporter of the arts, whether it be making music, painting a painting, writing a short story. I mean, this is essentially how I've existed my whole life. I was in a band, I wrote music, I played music, I got record deals, and then when that was over, I went into radio, I wrote articles for magazines, and all these things. All these things were so vital and important. But I just don't understand the reasoning behind this one. If you listen on 950 AM, KPRC, Houston's more stimulating talk radio in the city of Houston, you're probably aware of this. You're probably aware that Houston's got some operational infrastructure issues. You drive around, the roads in Houston are not a smooth ride many times. It's funny. I was talking to a buddy of mine that's a city planner that works in another much smaller city, and I was bitching about the roads in Houston, and she was like, it's understandable. I was like, why? And she was like, Houston's massive. Like, the amount of space Houston takes up, like, it's physically a very big city. Not only is it very densely populated, not only are there a lot of people there, but it's a massive piece of land that's called Houston. And the more land you have to cover with roads, the harder they are to maintain. So I understand why you have all these freaking potholes. Ouch, we just went over another one. What the hell? So Houston has ongoing issues with potholes. Who knows if they're ever going to be solved. There's now issues in Houston. Hopefully you haven't been affected by this, but many have. But there's now issues in Houston with trash collections. There's trash collections on scheduled pickup days that are supposed to happen in Houston, but they haven't been happening in Houston. There are some more obvious places where taxpayer dollars could be spent than where it's just been announced they're going to be spent. I have a difficult time, as much as I'm a big supporter of the arts, understanding how it in any way, shape, or form makes sense or serves the taxpayer to give money to the arts in the way that the mayor of Houston, Mayor Turner, is doing. What exactly is he doing? What are we talking about? I'm curious to know if you agree with me on this one. Like I said, I'm more than open to dissent. Tweet me at ADSXC is where you can find me on Twitter or Instagram. We'll get into exactly how he's spending taxpayer dollars next.
Real radio.
104.1.
Where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio, on Twitter at ADSXE.
So like I said, I'm a massive believer in the arts, especially for kids. Look, I've made a life out of the arts. Okay, it's a little generous to call anything I've done professionally in my lifetime art, but music, the written word, the spoken word, all of these things have been how I paid my mortgage, how I paid my bills before I had a mortgage. It's all I've ever done. And not only that, I'm a big proponent of music, art, literature, creative writing, all these things for kids. I think they're vitally important. And they're vitally important for us as adults. Not only do they help with child development, not only should every school give every kid access to musical instruments and an education with regard to all these things, but also, a wise person once said, life without music would be a mistake. Art, culture, things that help us feel, things that help us piece together the world, these are vital to the existence of our species. To be exposed to beauty and emotion and everything that the arts can expose you to is something that you and I, must support. These things are vitally important. Music is this incredible, unbelievable, intangible thing. Science can't fully explain music. Science still hasn't quite cottoned on to how music can affect you on an emotional, physical, and spiritual level. They're trying to, but music is truly magical. Music can bond people, bring people together that otherwise might be disparate. Music can provide common ground. Music can provide shared experiences. Music can hold up a mirror to our humanity. And all of the arts can do this in one way or another. So like I said, I'm struggling with the fact that I've got a problem with this, but I do. Houston's got all these ongoing issues. The potholes, the trash not being picked up. There's places, obvious places, where you could put taxpayer money. There's obvious places where you could put taxpayer money that would benefit the taxpayer. That would make a difference in the life of the taxpayer. You know, it's interesting. We talk about this on the show all the time, how you got to handle your own business. You're the captain of your own ship. If you are looking to an elected official to make a difference in your daily life, you're headed straight to a town called Disappointmentville. Population U. President of the United States of America doesn't know you, doesn't know your name, is not going to make a change that affects the world that you wake up into every single day. You are going to do that. However, the most significant, I think, elections you can take part in are your local ones. These are the ones that actually might affect how your day goes when it's going. So there's that. And if you're in Houston and they're allocating taxpayer dollars, well, there's some real tangible places these taxpayer dollars could go that could actually change the way your day goes when you wake up in the morning. This is not one of them. Mayor Turner of Houston has the resources to hire an official poet laureate. Yeah. It's a 2-year gig. Pays tens of thousands of dollars. I think 20, 30 grand, something like that. And Mayor Turner's office recently announced that the city is looking for its next poet laureate. If you're a poet, the gig's open. It says the Poet Laureate program celebrates Houston's rich culture and diversity through the work of a Houston poet who serves as the city's ambassador for the literary arts during a 2-year appointment. The Poet Laureate makes several guest appearances during the term and completes a featured project. Mayor Turner is quoted in the release saying, whether the poetry style is narrative or slam, delivered on page or through song, poetry communicates meaning beyond facts, connects people through shared experiences, and fosters empathy. I look forward to appointing our next poet laureate and building on the strong record of service achieved by preceding poets laureate. I don't understand how it's in the interest of the taxpayer to subsidize art in this way. I don't get it. Now, I'm a huge proponent, huge supporter of the arts. And maybe this is why this burns me up a little bit. If you're going to put taxpayer dollars into the arts, make it for kids. If you're an artist, if you're an adult, I mean, look, I'm not trying to smack the sandwich out of the mouth of a starving poet. You ever hear Stephen King talk about writing and being a writer? Stephen King said, you can call yourself a writer when you have written something, you've gotten paid for it, you receive a check in the mail for it, and then you can use that check to put into your bank and pay a bill. Stephen King says, then, and only then, can you call yourself a writer. I bailed on a scholarship to, not an Ivy League college. I got one of those National Merit scholarships, and I got scholarship money to go to Tufts and New England Conservatory of Music, and I decided, no, perish the thought. I am instead going to join this punk rock band that just got a record deal and tour the world. I mean, you offer a teenage boy a choice between a dorm room and a tour bus, and I can speak with some authority on this. He's going to take the tour bus every single time. So I did. When I got out of being in a band, when the band broke up, even though we're still signed to Sony, I found myself in a bit of a predicament. I found myself going, all my friends are getting out of college. All my friends are getting out of college, and all my friends have degrees, and they've all got jobs and apartments and cars and health insurance. And I'm like 22, 23 years old, and my resume says singer in a band, and I don't even have a band. I don't have anything. What do I know? What can I do? Do I go back to college? Or do I try and take this set of skills that I got and make something of myself with it? And that's what I did. And it wasn't easy. And I failed a lot. And I was broke. Still am most of the time. But I eked out a life doing something that I love. And I did it without the benefit of taxpayer dollars. And you know what? I wouldn't have felt comfortable taking taxpayer dollars for this. I was really glad that music was part of my youth and part of my education. But if you're going to be an artist, taking government handouts seems like a weird way to go through the world. I know, the government has sponsored the arts for many, many years. But in this situation, if you're like me, if you live in a city like Houston, maybe you do listen in Houston on 950 AM KPRC, Houston's oldest and most venerable radio station, you have a hard time going, wait a second, we're paying somebody to write poetry, yet that pothole in the road that's been there for the past 5 years gave me another flat tire? What the hell, man? What the hell? I don't fully understand it. So there, I said it. I think it's a lousy idea for Houston or any other city to spend taxpayer money on a poet laureate. I don't think it's in the interest of the taxpayer to subsidize art as much as art is vitally important. Making it as an artist is a badge you wear. It's a symbol of your hard work. It's a symbol of your talent and your ability to persevere through some difficult situations and maybe agree to a life where you're not going to get all the things that you want to get and the things that you see everybody around you getting because, well, you've chosen a different path. You've chosen to sail the seas of consequence. It's not down to taxpayers to subsidize art. And to me, this sounds like a nice gig to pay back a politically connected person. That's what it sounds like to me.
For more stimulation and less irritation, 9 out of 10 doctors choose KPRC AM 950, Houston's more stimulating talk radio.
Don't get the blues, get all the news. We mean all of you guys out there in Radioland.
All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
You know, one of the things I do not like about Donald Trump being president is that he makes my job harder. What is my job? Well, my job when I'm here having these conversations with you is a very specific one. It was interesting. When I was first tapped to do talk radio 4 or 5 years ago, when I wasn't on any stations, before I got my first affiliate in Orlando, Florida on Real Radio 104.1, and before the others followed, the Grand Dragons of talk radio spoke to me and said, hey, here's the thing about everybody that does talk radio. They're getting older, and so are their audiences, and we need to find out what's next. And we think it might be you. So what would you do with some time in talk radio? Well, hold on. Put what you would do aside. Here's what we would like you to do. And they told me what we would like you to do, what we would like you to try to do when you're on the radio is bring people together. There's 2 rules. Don't say if you're a Republican or a Democrat, and try and bring people together. See, we've made good money off of division for many years in the media industry and talk radio. And, well, we think that's coming to an end. And we want to see if somebody can move the needle by bringing people together. And I was like, well, this sounds great to me. Because first and foremost, it's easy for me to say I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I'm neither. I take each issue and each piece of legislation and each person as it comes on an individual basis. I don't believe in the two-party system. I don't really believe in party politics. I think there are some things about our political system that are unbelievably deeply flawed. Specifically, the fact that you cannot participate in a primary unless you are registered as something. Dumb. Got to be a joiner to play. So stupid. So wrong. But nevertheless, it was easy for me to be all in on this idea of bringing people together. And they said the money train for division was running out. Little did they know what was right around the corner. This is, like I said, going back 4 or 5 years ago, when the idea of Donald Trump being president was still the punchline to a joke. One that made people guffaw heartily. And then Donald Trump became president, and, well, people on the left and the right in the news media have been reaping the fiscal rewards ever since. There's good money in division. There's good money in fear and hate mongering. Doesn't matter which side you're on. And so, like I said, one of the things I don't like about Donald Trump being president is it makes my job harder. I still naively think it's my job to bring people together. That stopped being the directive, but it's what I believe in. I believe in giving people that are different, people that are raised differently, people that are from different parts of the world, people that have different religious beliefs, people that have different sexual orientations, people that have different fiscal situations. Anytime I can feel like I brought people together that are different and give them a place to hang out and have a conversation and gain a better understanding of that which they are not, well, that's my George Bush mission accomplished moment. I still believe in it. And Donald Trump being president makes my job harder when I'm trying to do that. Notice I didn't say Donald Trump makes my job harder when I'm doing that. Him being president makes my job harder. Because it's evidenced some really, truly egregious and aggressive behavior among Americans. Now, there's going to be a lot of people that are quick to say, oh, he emboldens white supremacists and Nazis and all that. Damn Skippy. There are too many instances to ignore of hateful folks getting some wind beneath their hateful wings because they feel like Donald Trump didn't disavow his white supremacist followers quickly enough and that he's secretly on their side. And there's no question in my mind that Donald Trump wants every vote he can possibly get, even the dirtiest, most despicable vote. Because Donald Trump is in it to win it. On the other side of the fence, though, there's a certain amount of hypocrisy on the left, because the left likes to flag wave and be bleeding heart and say that they've got the embargo on compassion and love and acceptance and diversity. And diversity is a two-way street. It believes accepting people that think differently than you do. And there's so many people on the left that have blinders on when it comes to the people that voted for Donald Trump. If you voted for Donald Trump, you are an idiot and you are a Nazi and I can't talk to you. Well, here's the thing. I know plenty of people that voted for Donald Trump that I really admire, that are really some of the best people I could ever hope to know, that are judged viciously by people on the left for their decision. They made a decision. They made a decision for the reasons that they had for making it. They had no malice in their heart when they did it. They just thought it was the right thing to do. And whether you agree with that or not, whether you understand that or not, whether you comprehend that or not, they're still another human being. Opinions, as the old expression goes, are just like butts, or a specific part of the butt that I can't mention by name on the radio and remain employed. Everybody's got one. And everybody that has one deserves your respect. And that's why I don't like Donald Trump being president. That's why I think he makes my job harder. Because with his presidency came this nasty divisiveness that is not just solely due to Donald Trump. We've talked about this numerous times on the show. A lot of it has to do with the economic downturn, the fact that we're coming out of a recession. Historically, if you look back, you'll see that cultures and countries become divided after they go broke, and that lasts for a while, and we're probably turning a corner and getting out of that. But I was sort of relieved, and man, she's catching all sorts of heat for this. She's catching all sorts of heat for this, and I wish she wasn't, because it's a vicious and self-perpetuating cycle. When for voicing an opinion that supports compassion, you get slammed. People need extremism, and it's disgusting. What I'm talking about is one of Hollywood's most popular stars, Zoe Saldana. She's in Guardians of the Galaxy. You know her. She said she doesn't want to be a bully. And she weighed in on President Trump. And she said, we, meaning the left, she's a liberal, we got cocky and became arrogant, and we also became bullies. I mean, can you think of anything that added more fuel during the run-up to the election? Can you think of anything that added more fuel to Donald Trump's campaign than Hillary Clinton calling his supporters a basket of deplorables? That was, I think, that and her lack of mobility when it came to going to places like the Midwest to campaign. That was, I think, one of the final nails in her coffin, because she just told half the country. She just told half the country that you're a deplorable person. It was uncalled for. It was wrong. She knew it. And I think it was one of a few things that lost her the election. So Zoe Saldana said, we got cocky, we became arrogant, and we became bullies. We were trying to single out a man for all these things he was doing wrong, and that created empathy in a big group of people in America that felt bad for him and that are believing his promises. Oh my gosh, so clear and so insightful. Ridiculed and reviled anyone that supported him en masse, and that just made... Well, that made people circle the wagons. That made people double down on Trump. Well, clearly Hillary Clinton doesn't have our back. Clearly Hillary Clinton's supporters don't care what happened to us. They dismiss us. They think we don't count as people. We're a basket of deplorables? All right. No, we're definitely showing up at the polling booth, no matter what. Now, this is what I really, really like about Zoe Saldana having the stones necessary to say this. And look, she already caught so much heat for this. She was given such a hard way to go. I feel bad because, well, she said something along the lines of, hey, we could be nicer to people, whether or not we agree with them. And her own side of the political fence turned on her in a very vicious manner. But we'll get into more of this next. It's a good one.
AD on the radio.
So Zoe Saldana, star of Guardians of the Galaxy, said something very insightful. And then she got trampled for it by people on her own side of the political fence. And I'm glad she said it. I hope people heard it when she said it. And I'm sad that she's catching heat for it. Because ultimately what she said was, hey, it's okay to be nice to people when they believe differently than you. And if you're not nice to people, well, chances are they're not going to be nice to you. I mean, to paraphrase, of course. She basically said bullies helped elect Donald Trump. She says she doesn't want to be a bully in real life. She said, we got cocky and we became arrogant and we also became bullies. We were trying to single out a man for all these things he was doing wrong. And that created empathy in a big group of people in America that felt bad for him, that are believing in his promises. Now, to be totally clear, Zoe Saldana, not in any shape or form a Trump supporter. She is firmly on the left. But she looked at her cohorts on the left and went, kind of taking a lot of the humanity out of this. You're dismissing people. Exactly half the country, you're dismissing people because they want to vote for Donald Trump, because they want to vote for their guy and not our girl. And you're basically saying they're idiot, moron, knuckle-dragging waste of space. Some of them might be, some of us are too. Not everybody who voted for Donald Trump is an evil a-hole that wants to see America burn. It's just not possible. Because that would mean exactly half the country falls into that category, and I don't believe it that they do. The evil a-holes that hate America exist on both sides. And I get it. I understand the reticence to empathize with Donald Trump supporters when he says and does some of the absolutely ridiculous things that he says and does. I get it. I understand. Believe me, I do. But the real challenge, and I think the real win for all of us in Donald Trump's presidency, is if we dig deep into our humanity. You know, they voted differently than me, but they seem okay. I'm gonna go out on a limb and imagine that maybe even though their voting record is the polar opposite of mine, we might still be able to get along as humans, as Americans, and, you know, survive and grow as a species. I mean, that's really what this show is all about. I've said it before, I'll say it again, it bears repeating. What do you want? What do we all want? We all kind of want the same stuff. We would like to have a roof over our heads. We would like to have a job that pays for that roof. We would like to have the security that comes with a job. It would be great if that job was meaningful to us in some way, if it was fulfilling. And if we have kids, we want our kids to have a real shot at an education and making their way in this world. This is universal. We all want these things. We just have different ideas about how to get there. And we stand a much better chance of getting there if we can have a conversation. And maybe, I don't know, learn from each other every once in a while. Maybe we could even get there faster. But anyway, Zoe Saldana, she's not a Trump supporter. She's firmly ensconced in her lefty politics. But she saw the destructive nature of the, I guess, smugness and elitism that has sprung up on the left with regard to anyone that is on the right. It's not okay. Just because you don't understand someone, don't understand how they voted for him, doesn't mean that it gives you carte blanche to dismiss them as a human being. And I'm so glad she said it, and I hope it gets heard. But this is just, well, she took a beating for it. I think this is part of the problem. She, like Jesus, said, hey, wouldn't it be great to be nice to people for a change? And got crucified for it. So it's a bummer, and it's part of what Donald Trump being president does to make my life harder. People are so dug in. People are so divisive. And this definitely exists on the right, too. You're not right enough for us, you rhino, you Republican in name only. There's sort of a bit of a civil war that happens on the right and has been happening on the right for a long time. But it's weird to see the left turn on one of their own in this way. Only because, well, one of the watchwords of the political left is diversity. Well, here's the thing. Diversity means diversity of thought, diversity of opinion, not only diversity of color of skin. And I think, look, she's a celebrity. She has a big platform. She's in a series of movies that are some of the biggest that ever have been or ever will be. And when a high-profile minority female speaks out against what a lot of people regard as the cause of tearing apart anything and anyone that's even vaguely supportive of Donald Trump, when she says, hey, wouldn't it be great to be nice to people for a change? It doesn't support the narrative of division. And the narrative of division is what helps people get power. The narrative of division is what helps people on both sides of the political fence keep us fearful of one another. The narrative of division is what allows us to be conquered. The expression divide and conquer has never been exercised more than by politicians in America in 2018 and 2019. People don't want us to talk. People don't want us to get along. Organizations that make money off of the division, whether it be political or religious or a money-making scheme disguised as social activism, they don't want us to talk. They don't want us to get along. It is much easier for them to monetize our situation, get the power from our situation, if they can keep us afraid of one another. If they can say there's black and there's white, and it's either all evil or all good, or never the twain shall meet, and you should be afraid of everything that you're not, and you shouldn't even try and understand it because it's not worth understanding because these people are evil, deplorable, stupid people. By the way, this argument works on both sides of the political fence. They want that. They want you afraid, and they don't want us talking to each other. And so I think it's a real shame. I think it's a real shame that someone on the left could be vilified, could be crucified online, could take potentially a massive career hit by saying maybe we should be treating folks with compassion. Or maybe if we treated one another with compassion, our side might have won. No, don't need you. Bye, Felicia. And I wish people would listen. I know you're listening because it's the end of the show. And you've listened this whole time. And that, my friend, gives me hope. Thank you so much for hanging. Thank you for being a part of my radio family. I'll be back soon. We'll do it all over again.